Hey everybody, this is Bill Ebert. This is writing session number 4. I want to talk to you guys about how to become a writer, and it doesn't matter, like we said in the previous ones, it doesn't matter if you want to become a full-time writer or you just want to improve your writing skills, help you communicate with the written word. And so something that we talked about last week is to invest in yourself, to make yourself feel like a writer. You know, you should be writing all the time. You should be carrying a journal with you. And so I upgraded my journal. I actually made this. Me and my wife made this little Be Amazing journal this week. You guys who are following me on Facebook, you saw the little post. But I made a journal. It's a pretty nice sized book. It's kind of an upgrade from what I normally carry. I always carry a notebook, always have a couple pencils with me. So I'm always taking sketches, always putting down ideas. Become a writer before you become published. It's very important to do that. So let's just reiterating one of the hacks from last week. I'm going to share my screen with you, show you my notes. You can go into your back office. I probably should start with that. I'm going to go into the back office. For all of you guys who want the notes and want the previous sessions, because I talk really fast and I put a lot of content in, you know, you'll watch this stuff and then 6 months later go back and watch it again, and you'll get stuff that you didn't get before, because I put a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. So you can go back here into your back office, and under tools you have advanced training, and for everybody who's ambassador and above, you'll have archives for every single thing we teach. And here's the book club sessions, here's the writing sessions, here's the coaching sessions, the speaking sessions, the Dream Life Advanced, blogging for fun and profit, and the 7 Foundations series. So all of that stuff is back here, as well as we're going to have a link to the notes so that you can go back and see the notes that I actually point to as we're going through. So I hope you guys are still taking notes, even though I have my own copy. You know, it's really good for you to be writing stuff down and taking notes. It just helps you remember it better. So let's go into the note session here. First thing, part 4, talk to a writing coach. And so I want to talk to you about having input. And it can be through a coach. It can be someone who is doing what you would like to do. If someone is a blogger and they're not making any money and they're writing in a venue or a genre that's not your style, you could probably get some ideas from them, but that's probably not the best place for you to get coached, because 80-90% of their stuff is going to be specific to them. And so you need to talk to somebody who you can emulate. Get a coach that you can that understands your story, understands where you want to go, and can help you get to those goals. So the sooner you can get to that person who you want to emulate, the faster and better and the easier it's going to be for you to get there. So find a coach, find somebody in the field. You can find a lot of people to help you for free. You know, a lot of people are getting into this and they don't have $1,000 a month to get started. In our program, for example, you get all of the trainings. You can go back and listen to them thousands of times if you want to. You get all the trainings. You get part of a culture of people who are doing the same thing that you're doing. So advice back and forth is just crazy value for having the community that we have. And you get myself and some of the other people in the audience who will actually look at your manuscripts and help you write stuff, give you some personal advice. So one of the things that we do as an ambassador in our program, every ambassador and above gets monthly coaching. We actually talk to you 30-minute sessions once a week and can help you if it's writing that you want help with. So get a coach, find somebody, whether it's me or somebody else, find yourself a coach that can really speak into and give you some advice and give you some counseling and how to get there. You'll get there 10 times faster than if you're just trying to figure it out by yourself. The next thing is a concept that I call emulate, imitate, fabricate, pontificate. This is just look into the field that you want to go into. And in your writing, as you're practicing and as you're writing, sometimes it's a good idea to get outside of yourself and emulate someone else's style. And what that does is it causes you to stretch. For example, if let's use an exercise example. If you go to the gym, many times in a gym, you'll find that people are really either upper body or lower body. They're either weights or they're cardio. And so they're really strong at lifting weights, but they can't run across the room without losing their breath. You know, they can pass out and die because they don't have any cardio skills. And so they have a strength. And as a writer, you need to expand your strength. You need to expand your strengths and do things that are uncomfortable for you. And one of the ways that you do that is to not just stay in your little circle You know, if you're writing children's stories, that's great. That should be your story. But stretch, move over, emulate other people's style, even if you're never going to write for that. This is going to exercise those muscles in those areas of thinking and bring depth to your style as you start to understand other people's style. And so emulate, imitate, fabricate. What I'm saying is write things that you wouldn't write. Say things in a way that you wouldn't necessarily say it. And that will help you when you do go back to saying what you want to say. You also want to, I use the word pontificate. That means just make stuff up. I mean, give yourself the freedom when you're writing, not just in your realm, not just in your genre, not just in your story. Start telling fabulous stories. And fabulous meaning, you know, tell a fiction story once in a while. If you're nonfiction all the time, give yourself permission to just goof off and tell the goofiest children's story, tell the goofiest fabrication. And like I said, that exercise is a guy at the gym who's all upper body. He's disproportionate. He'll wear long pants because he doesn't want to show his scrawny little legs. He's got this huge upper body and these scrawny little legs, or the other way around. He's got these massive legs. He's pushing 1,500 pounds and he can't pull himself up on a bar. You know, he doesn't have any upper body strength. So it's good as a writer to do the same thing that we recommend in health and nutrition and in exercise. Balance. You don't have to be 100% balanced, but start working on those other things. So let's move over to your fan base. You actually start building a fan base before you become a writer, which means you probably, of all the things that I talk about, I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, so you might get tired of me. You need a blog. You need a place other than Facebook where people are only ADD, always dealing with distraction. You need a place other than Facebook where you're going to put your quips, where you're going to write your paragraphs, where you're going to say things, you're going to start building an audience. You need a fan base for many, many reasons. And we'll talk about some of them today. You need a fan base, and the only way to get a fan base is to have a blog and a subscription list. Those two things are absolutely 100% crucial. If you're serious about writing, if you want to write a book, you want to write a story, you want to get good at what you're doing, you need to have those things for the reasons that I'm about to talk about. A blog is very, very simple. I mean, you can go out there and get a free version of a blog and start right away. But if you want a professional blog, you need to talk to us. That's one of the things that we do in our program, is to help you build a blog that works. It's a professional blog. It ties to this, and it does this, and it has advertising, and you start monetizing and all that other stuff. Don't do that until you're ready. But what I'm saying is, when you are ready, talk to us. We want to help you do that. But you need a fan base. You're going to get a fan base. We call it the list. You have to have an email list. And then we can go into some of the reasons why you need an email list. One of the reasons is because you want to sell stuff. You want to monetize your story. You want to expand your horizon. And the best way to do that is to sell your stuff. That people value your stuff, or will read your stuff and share your stuff more if they paid for it than if they just got it for free. It's just the nature of the beast. And so having a fan base or a list that has a relationship with you that's based on some monetary exchange is very, very valuable for your career. The next quote here says, listen to your fans. And you don't have to have everybody giving you positive feedback. Here's one of the ways that you can listen to your fan. When you have, you don't have to listen to your fans when you only have 3. That's not enough for you to really get a good feedback. When you have 25, 50, 100 fans, and you start putting stuff out there, you can see it now on Facebook. When you say certain things, you have 80, 90, 100 people checking, liking, sharing, and then you say something else, and there's just crickets. I mean, just dead air. And you're thinking, you know, the stuff that people aren't paying attention to is the better stuff. You know, what is it? What is it that I'm saying or doing that's not getting an audience? Now, don't blame it on your fans. A lot of people say, well, just people are just dumb. They just don't get it. Don't blame it on your fans. As a writer, as an author, you need to take responsibility for bringing people to your words. We understand that people are not readers. We understand that people are not thinkers. We understand that people are whatever they are. It's still your job as a writer to reach them. It's not their job to figure out how to reach you. It's your job to reach them. So when I'm saying listen to your fans, when you put something out to your fan base and you get a tremendous amount of response, and then you put something out there that you think is 10 times better and you get no response at all, listen to that feedback. Pay very close attention to it. Don't just slough it off like, well, they're just not deep enough to understand my stuff. Well, maybe they're not, but it's still your job to reach down or reach across and figure out a way to communicate to those people. The next tip I want to give you is don't listen to your fans. Exactly opposite of what I just told you. When it comes to telling a story, if you don't go to the deep side of the pool, in other words, if you always stay with the quip, if you always stay with the smart stuff, if you always stay with the stuff that gets people's attention, it's very likely that you'll never really say what you want to say. In other words, if all you're doing is drawing an audience and you're filling up the room and maybe you're making a little bit of money, but you're never really getting to say anything because you're only dealing with the audience, you're only dealing with the audience's needs, you're letting them decide what you're going to say, you are losing your voice. So I actually want you to take a balance between those two. You want to get their attention, but when you have their attention, tell them what you need to say. Be sure that you drag them over. They might like to stay in the kiddie pool, but the moment they get wet, drag them over to the deep side and let them go. Make them swim. You've got to help people move over to the other side of the pool. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like it there. That's okay. Don't make them stay. Don't make them stay there. Bring them back over, pat them on the back, let them play in the kiddie pool again, because you realize that is the audience needs a little bit of balance. But as you start dragging more and more people over, you're going to help grow your fan base. You're going to help mature them, help you understand your story, understand your voice, because it's very difficult for the writer, the thinker, the reader, who's a little deeper than most people, to actually truly be heard. And so it's your job to be heard. And sometimes it's by, first finding out what they need to hear. And then as you get their attention, drag them over. In the marketing world, we say it like this. Gary Vaynerchuk says, jab, 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 right hook. He wrote a book on the subject, that you give three happy positives and one request for a sale when you're marketing. Well, it's the same way in your writing, that you need to give enough story. You need to give enough celebration. You need to give enough positive, even if you have a negative message that you're sending. So find out where that balance is. You can actually pay very close attention. As you have a blog, you're going to see, well, this blog hit better than this one. This one started here. And if you're doing a video blog, it's even easier. You can see where you drop people off. You can actually watch a video when you're doing video blogging. You can watch the audience go, and then boom, they just drop off. You should pay attention to that stuff. What did you say to your audience to make them all go away? And it's not hard to do. You can see it on YouTube. As you start getting more and more fans, like I said, don't pay that much attention to it when you only have 10 or 15 people. But once you start getting a couple hundred people, realize what your audience is not liking and avoid those things. It's okay to avoid those things until they come over. All right, so we had don't listen to your fans. Something that we probably don't have the time to really get into in depth, but this would be a personal coaching thing. Once we started showing you how to write your story, and once we start finding out what your brand is, you want to get a little deeper in agendizing your life story. In other words, some of the greatest books that were ever written were The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And what happens when you look at the master craftsmanship done in the epic stories is there is 10 times more story behind the story than the actual story. In other words, if you read the volumes and volumes and volumes of Tolkien's storytelling, the Elven world had an entire history behind it so that you could hear 20 minutes of a story. And so there's so much depth behind your words when you agendize your life story. One of your goals as you're starting to write a book, before you finalize the book, before you finalize the story, is to back up and say, what am I trying to do? In other words, to what end? What story am I trying to convey? If there's a story that is hidden, that is 10 times greater than what is revealed, there will be a magical depth to the way that you write. They'll know that there's an essence, there's a flavor, there's a sense, there's an echo that reverberates through your story that helps people connect with it. It's the thing that makes the James Patterson story, it makes him a great writer. It's the greatest writers of all time will actually tell a story behind the story. And like I said, we really can't get into all the different nuances and all the historical writers in the past that have done it. But just take my word for it. It's good for you to back up a little bit and agendize your life story. What is my mission behind this book? What is my mission behind this blog? What is my mission behind writing? Don't just say, well, I want to write because nobody listens to me. I want to learn how to write because, don't do it out of a weak place. Figure out a glorious agenda that's deeper, purposeful, reasonable, that you want to do these things. Purify your purpose. It's part of what we train people to do. Next point is write like you're a dancer. And it goes along with the next two are actually the same one. Tell it like you're already a #1 bestseller, a romance. In other words, be your favorite author. Don't be embarrassed. Be proud. When you get done, you don't have to tell everybody that you're the greatest writer you know. It's not about going out and bragging about it, but you need to brag to yourself. You need to give yourself permission to be the greatest writer you've ever met. Now, there's always going to be people that I read that I'm like, man, I shouldn't even be putting my pen to a piece of paper. I mean, this guy is so great that I'll never compare. Walter Wangerin is one of those guys. I read his books, and I think, I'm not really sure if I'll never measure up to this guy's stuff. And you should always have a measure of humility, but a measure of such celebration in your stuff, such joy, that when you go back and read your stuff a month later, you should be able to celebrate this stuff. And a lot of times if you can't, if you're embarrassed by it or it's not quite there, it's because you didn't give yourself permission to dance. You didn't give yourself permission to say it the way you want to say it, to be honest and unlayered and true. Be the kind of person that can be vulnerable on a piece of paper. Be real, be raw, be true. And then when you get back and you touch that place on a piece of paper as you go back and read it, celebrate your words. Speak your words as if you're going to be speaking it in front of the leaders of the planet. Write these things down as if everyone in the world will be reading these words. Every sentence as if you are the best writer you've ever met. And you give yourself permission to be great. It's just something about the mindset of someone who is, hesitating to write words down versus someone who roars on a piece of paper. Someone who gives their all to that sentence without embarrassment, without shame, just with total abandon. You need to learn how to do that. One of the great books for this, one of my favorite movies is The Dead Poets Society. Robin Williams takes a guy in the room and he shows him that he can be a spontaneous storyteller. And most of my favorite movies are of that nature, to give somebody the voice that they had the whole time. Give yourself permission to be that, to be great. And you'll be surprised how your writing style will change the more you celebrate yourself. And then others, of course, will do the same thing. As you get celebrated, your writing will get more full of dance. It's hard to define. You can see the difference 6 months in, a year in, 3 years in. You can actually see that you've given yourself permission with your words and your phrases and the way that you tell a story. It's just magical to watch someone give themselves permission. Now, you don't have to wait. That's one of the things. This is one of those hacks. You don't have to wait 6 months or a year or 10 years to actually celebrate yourself. You can start doing it right away. And there's some little hacks maybe later on. We can talk about some of those, but we're getting close to the end. So the last one is the Alice story. One of the things that we tell whenever I help someone with a website or with a blog, or when they start telling their story, we tell them the story of Alice in Wonderland. And let's pretend you're Lewis Carroll. You're writing a story, and you're writing a story about Alice. And Alice falls through the looking glass, and it's very clear who she sees first. She's got to see the white rabbit first, and she's got to see the caterpillar. You have to tell a story that has order to it. And now I'm not talking about storytelling. I'm actually talking about your brand. When they come to you and read your book, there needs to be crystal clear reason that they're there. The more vague they are, the more easily they're distracted and they're going to go away. Now, what some people, we used to be able to be a little vague and let people come in, but it seems to be, with today's very short attention span, if they're looking for fiction and they're looking for this type of story and they're looking for this, they're going to connect with you, and you tell them up front who and what you are by the images that you have on your website, by the photography that you use on your blogs, by the story that you tell in your tagline, by the types of stories that you write and point to, by the people that you like on Facebook. You're actually telling a story, even without specifically saying it. You're telling Alice, who is our customer, our reader, you're telling Alice exactly what they're going to find, when they're going to find it, and what you expect from them at the end. There's a very, very clear path. And I don't have a blog sample to show you, but whenever I help someone with their writer blog, we make sure that the number one thing that we get people to do is to subscribe to the blog. We want Alice to subscribe. More than any other thing, we want them to connect with us and subscribe to our blog. After that, it's okay if they read our blogs, they like our blogs, they buy our products. But the number one thing is to subscribe. And because of that, we only have 3 links at the top: blog, subscribe, talk to me, which ends up subscribing. We want them to do one thing. So make it crystal clear in your story. When you start doing a blog, when you start doing advertising, when you start telling a story, make sure it's in the beginning, especially in the beginning. Make it super crystal clear as to what you expect Alice to do. What do I want my customers to feel? What do I want them to do? How do I want them to engage with me? Do I want them to buy books? Do I want them to come to live events? What's my ultimate goal? Where do I want to bring them? Very important. Now, the clearer you tell that, the more likely they're going to follow. If you start getting vague and you're not really sure yourself, it's really tough for people to follow today. So make that your goal. That's it for today. 23 minutes in. I'm going to open up for Q&A. But if you ever want the replays, just go back here in your back office now. Usually within 24 hours from the time we do an event, you can go back here into the writing classes, coaching classes, and speaking classes and get the playlist right here. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming to the writing class. One of my goals this year is to see 4 or 5 of you make it the first best-selling author in Amazon. So if you want to be one of those people, let me know. I want to help you do that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open up for Q&A. Now's the time to get some free coaching and Q&A if you want it. So let me unmute everybody. I'm going to stop the recording.